Talk 19. The talk with no name. Subject of non-self. The scholar and the dirty cloth. A famous Sufi master in Basra was pressed by a scholar for a teaching. The master said he was not ready to receive it. When the scholar insisted, the master handed him a dirty loincloth and an empty can to hang around his neck, and told him to walk through the market. If boys threw stones, he must smile and offer sweets. The scholar refused, saying his reputation mattered too much. The master nodded gently. The lesson had already been given. What part of you protects reputation at all costs? Where does the fear of looking foolish still govern your choices? If dignity feels fragile, what is it built upon? Consider whether the serious self you defend is substance, or simply a role you are afraid to set down. There are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim on for a bit. And then eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" When Tora, 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 the movie, was filmed in Los Angeles about the attack on Pearl Harbor, Asian extras were told to say, "I tie your shoe, you tie my shoe," to sound Japanese. What is exposed is not humiliation, but identification. A role feels threatened, so defense arises. Reputation appears solid, yet it exists only in shared agreement. Remove the agreement, and nothing tangible remains. The one who feels injured is constructed from opinion, memory, and fear, not fixed substance. Zhuangzi's butterfly dream. One night, Zhuangzi dreamed he was a butterfly, drifting lightly among flowers, carefree and content. He did not know he was Zhuangzi. He was simply a butterfly. When he awoke, he was once again Zhuangzi, lying in bed. But he wondered, was he Zhuangzi who had dreamed he was a butterfly, or a butterfly now dreaming he was Zhuangzi? The boundary between dreamer and dreamed seemed less certain than before. He sat quietly, unsure which so-called self had truly awakened. Pause during the day and take 3 slow, deliberate breaths, noticing how identity tightens in the body. Let the breath soften it. Each evening, write down 3 ordinary things you are grateful for. Gratitude shifts attention from defending image toward appreciating what is already enough. Recall a moment when protecting image limited your growth. What changed when you allowed vulnerability instead? Reflect on whether your recent choices were guided by reputation or by values you truly respect. Transformation begins when conduct aligns more with conscience than with applause. I was talking to a woman and she said, I can tell everything about a man's personality by his car. I said, I haven't got one. A bit of Shakespeare, all the world's a stage. In a quiet court, a man reflected that all the world is a stage. Each person enters, plays a part, and exits. One is an infant, then a student, a lover, a soldier, a judge, an elder. Costumes change, voices change, ambitions rise and fade. The roles feel urgent while performed, yet the actor behind them remains unseen. When the curtain falls, the character dissolves, the stage remains, the audience shifts. The play continues without clinging to any single part. When challenged, what emotion surfaces first? Defensiveness? Embarrassment? Pride? Notice the thoughts that follow. What story does the mind construct to protect itself? Question that narrative gently. Which assumptions are shaping your reaction? Deeper insight begins when we examine not events, but our interpretation of them. Before I was a monk, I sometimes volunteered for a carnival costume company. They took the costumes to big events and we would wear them, a different one every time. This time I went with Eddie, an old school friend. It took a while to put them on. We were buried beneath huge white spikes jutting in every direction, white stockings, massive claws, and masks with large almond-shaped eyes. We were aliens from outer space. As we prepared to weave through the crowd, I couldn't believe, but I heard Eddie whisper from inside the costume, "Hey Rob, do you think anyone will recognize us?" What is happening is simple. A name gathers memories, habits, and reactions, and we call that collection me. Others respond to it, and the pattern strengthens. But look closely. There are thoughts, feelings, and actions, yet no solid owner behind them. Life happens. Identity is added afterward. The ship of Theseus. A famous ship was preserved in a harbour for generations. Whenever a plank rotted, it was replaced. Whenever a mast cracked, it was renewed. Over time, every board, sail, and nail was exchanged for new parts. Visitors still called it the same ship. One day, someone gathered all the discarded original planks and rebuilt them into another vessel. Now there were two ships. Which one was the real Theseus? The one with the smooth, new, continuous form? Or the one with original, rotted, cracked pieces? The harbour fell silent. Who could answer? When distress appears, pause and notice the thought, this is happening to me. Gently question it. Where is the me located? In sensation? In memory? In reaction? Feel the body directly. Experience breathing without adding a story. Observe how feelings change on their own. Ask, is this owned or simply arising? Loosen identification rather than fighting sensation. Remember, others experience similar processes. Take one small, kind action without making it personal. Do one small, kind action without making it personal. Return daily to mindfulness and ethical living to soften self-centered habits. What story are you telling about who you are? Hero? Victim? Expert? Outsider? How does that narrative shape your purpose and choices? Step back and view your life philosophically. If identity is a changing storyline, what remains when the roles shift? On an intensive retreat, disassociation from self-identity really increases. I sometimes enter a room and think, hey, there's a bag like mine. Oh, it is mine, which is okay. It is when it starts happening with my hand at the end of my arm that I really start to worry. Here's the chariot analogy. King Milinda asked the monk Nagasena, "Who are you?" Nagasena replied, "Nagasena is just a name." The king pointed to a chariot and asked, "Well, what made it a chariot? Was it the wheels, the axle, the frame, the reins? None alone was the chariot, and apart from its parts, there was no separate chariot to be found. It was only a convenient designation." Likewise, Nagasena said, what we call a person is merely parts assembled and named. Pause and notice what quietly supports you. Breath, shelter, teachers, opportunity. Gratitude steadies perspective. Then observe your present actions carefully. Are they aligned with clarity or driven by habit? Mindful reflection reveals how small choices shape experience more than circumstances themselves. Two lifelong friends promised that whoever died first would return and describe the afterlife. Their greatest fear was that nothing awaited them. Years later, Dan died. Benny grieved and waited. 2 months later, Dan's voice whispered, "Benny, Benny. Benny said, "Is that you?" "Yes, it's wonderful. I wake, I love, I eat greens, I run in the sun, I love, again, I rest, and I repeat all day across wide open fields with endless blue skies and soft grass stretching far beyond the horizon." "Amazing," Benny said. "Heaven? Heaven? No, I'm a rabbit somewhere in Australia." So notice how quickly the mind says, "I am this," or "I am that." As a success appears, "I did it." A mistake appears, "I failed." Yet both are moments passing through awareness. Events arise, reactions follow, and a story forms. The self is the story, not the happening. The story: the king and the beggar. A weary king slipped out of his palace, disguised as a beggar, curious how his people lived. That same night,
I wonder what's going on inside.
Mistaken for royalty after donning a lost cloak, was brought into the palace and treated as a king. Each lived the other's life for months. The beggar grew confident, giving commands. The king learned hunger and humility. When their identities were revealed, both hesitated. Which life had been more real? It turned out the crown and the rags felt strangely interchangeable. Some takeaway tips. Establish simple, steady habits that protect body and mind. Regular movement, nourishing meals, and adequate sleep. Throughout the day, pause briefly and ask whether your actions align with your deeper values. Notice where effort is wasted and what truly does not matter, and delegate when possible to preserve clarity. When leading others, practice compassion. Listen before speaking. Encourage rather than control. Create space where people feel safe to contribute and grow. Small, consistent habits quietly reduce avoidable stress and strengthen wise decision-making. Consider a past mistake you still carry. What did it actually teach you about attachment, pride, or fear? Rather than replay regret, extract its wisdom, then look forward. What kind of legacy grows from humility and awareness, not image or approval? A man rubbed a bottle and a genie came out. "Okay," the genie said. "What's your wish?" The man said, "I want all ladies to love me." "Very well," said the genie, clapping his hand. Poof! The man turned into a bar of chocolate. The world's greatest problem. A young reporter spotted a Buddhist monk at an airport and asked, "What is the world's greatest problem? Global warming? Hunger? Corruption?" The monk smiled. "Who are you?" "I'm a reporter." No, that's your job." "Ah, John Smith." No. That's your name. A human being. No, that's your species. Back and forth they went until the reporter laughed. All right, I don't know who I am. The monk nodded gently. That confusion, he said, is one of the world's greatest problems. Noticing how your understanding of self shifted over time. What once felt solid may now seem flexible. How have your ways of thinking, deciding, and solving problems matured? Growth appears not in adding identity, but in seeing more clearly how it forms and dissolves. My school friends and I, we still stay in touch online. Recently, there was a school reunion and all the guys were there. A classmate said to me, your ears must be burning. I was feeling very proud, but it turned out he was only saying that because he had sold me some reject Bluetooth earbuds. Look closely at experience. Sensations arise, thoughts comment, emotions move, decisions follow. Each appears and fades. Nowhere can a fixed controller be found. There is functioning, responding, adjusting, but no solid center directing it all. The sense of me is a useful label, not a separate entity. In the mosquito and the bull, a tiny mosquito buzzes around a bull, stinging him and boasting about how much pain he is causing and how important he is. He tells the bull, "I hope I'm not wearying you," and promises to leave if the bull has had too much. The bull barely notices and replies, "I didn't even know you were there. You may leave for all I care." The lesson on non-self. This story highlights the inflated ego, the self, the gnat, the mosquito, which believes it is the center of the world. The lesson is that we are often less significant than we think, and the world operates fine without our personal drama or interference. To make it good, establish simple daily habits that support clarity of mind and steady energy, nourishing food, sufficient sleep. Take brief reflected pauses during the day to ask whether your actions align with your deeper values. Rather than impulses, delegate tasks that do not require your direct involvement, freeing attention for what truly matters. When guiding others, practice compassion. Listen carefully, respond calmly, and create environments where people feel respected, included, and encouraged to grow without fear. What is the self that you are defending in work and life? Is it essence or arrangement? Philosophical inquiry loosens certainty. Acceptance follows. Limitations and opportunities arise within conditions, not ownership. When we stop insisting on a fixed center participation becomes lighter and wiser. Recently, I learned you can iron a tablecloth directly on the table while damp. Pleased with how smooth it looked, I tried the same method with my monk's robe, but the scars on my chest are healing slowly. The self is like an orchestra. Violins, drums, flutes, and brass each play their part. Music arises from coordination, timing, and conditions. If you search for the music separate from the instruments, you can't find it. Stop the players, and the symphony fades. Yet while it plays, it feels unified and real. What we call self is like that music, emerging from body, thought, memory, and perception working together. Not from a hidden conductor inside, but from harmony in motion. While working at a show called Blind Boys of Alabama, I was taping white strips on black stage steps. The stage manager bent down and said, Rob, they are blind. So they weren't going to be able to see the strips at all. Later, during the peak of the show, the band walked down the steps in line, holding shoulders, singing into the crowd. We stared, we followed them by staring, and then I looked at our stage manager. You see them? Nope, they were gone. We had lost the band. The self is like a whirlpool in a river. You can point to its shape, yet no drop remains. The pattern holds while water constantly changes. When currents shift, it vanishes. It was never a separate thing, only movement arranged briefly in form. What we call self is continuity, not solidity. Memory links moments together, and we assume a single owner runs through them. But each moment is fresh, thoughts new, feelings shifting, perceptions changing. The thread feels unbroken, yet it is woven from passing events, not permanence. Pause and observe how quickly the word I appears in thought, emotion, memory, and reaction. Why are you unhappy? Because 99% of everything you think and of everything you do is for yourself. And there isn't one. There is thinking, reacting, striving, remembering, but no solid owner behind them. Samsara continues when we defend an imaginary center that cannot be found or secured. Let experience unfold naturally without constructing a permanent me at its shifting center of life itself, moment by moment. The self is like a username online. Posts, memories, reactions gather under one label. Others respond as if it were solid, yet it is only a name linking changing content. Remove the label, and nothing substantial disappears, just organized information. Because identity is flexible, growth is possible. Because the story of me can change, we are not trapped by the past. Because no fixed self must be defended, relationships soften. When we see identity as process, life becomes lighter, creative, and open. So I'd like to end this talk with wishing you well, my gratitude and appreciation for your kind attention. May many of you attain the peace of Nibbana and be free from all avoidable suffering and harm. May you all be peaceful, happy, safe, and well.